My son-in-law told his golf buddies I was a charity case. Said it at my own granddaughter's 7th birthday party while I was in the next room setting up the bounce house I'd rented with cash. He didn't whisper it either. He said, "Margaret's dad still drives a delivery truck at 63. We basically keep him afloat. I'm Walter Brennan, 63 years old, and for the past 14 years, I've let my daughter believe the small trucking gig I mentioned back in 2010 was all I had. What my daughter Emily didn't know was that Brennan Logistics Partners had grown into one of the largest independent freight and warehousing operations in the Southeast, covering Georgia, the Carolinas, Tennessee, and Alabama, with 3,100 employees and contracts worth $142 million a year. When she and her husband Kevin sat me down 2 months ago to explain why I should sell my Lakehouse and move into a studio apartment near their subdivision, I didn't raise my voice. I made 3 phone calls and waited for Sunday dinner. If you're listening to this, subscribe and tell me where you're from, because this story is about what happens when the people closest to you decide your worth based on the truck you drive instead of the life you've built. Most people see what Kevin sees when they look at me. A guy in his early 60s who wears Carhartt jackets and Red Wing boots that have been resoled 3 times. I drive a 2006 Chevy Silverado with rust around the wheel wells and a faded Atlanta Braves bumper sticker from the 2021 World Series. I eat at Waffle House twice a week because I genuinely like the hash browns, and I bring a 12-pack of sweet tea to every family gathering because I don't see the point of spending $9 on a bottle of wine that tastes the same as the $5 one. Kevin Crawford, 37 years old, dental school at Emory, owns a cosmetic dentistry practice in Buckhead pulling in $220,000 a year, drives a black Mercedes GLE, wears watches that cost more than some people's cars and makes sure you notice. My daughter Emily, 34, office manager at Kevin's practice, which means she answers to her husband 8 hours a day and then goes home and answers to him for the rest. She used to paint watercolors on my back porch when she was 12. Now she color coordinates her kitchen towels with the seasons and calls it self-care. The first sign something was shifting came about 14 months ago at Thanksgiving. Kevin started referring to my lake house as the Brennan property when he talked to his parents. My place on Lake Hartwell, 4 bedrooms, 3 baths, sitting on 2 acres with a private dock. I built myself in 2003. His mother, Judith Crawford, nearly choked on her cranberry sauce when she heard the property tax estimate. "Walter, that must eat you alive on a truck driver's pension." I told her I managed fine. She gave me the kind of smile people give stray dogs they don't intend to feed. By Christmas, Kevin had started a group text with his parents, and Emily called family planning. I only know because Emily left her phone on my kitchen counter, and a notification popped up. Kevin's message read, "Dad thinks the lake property is worth $850K minimum. If we approach Walter right, we could get him to sell at a family rate. He doesn't know what he's sitting on." I put the phone back exactly where it was and didn't say a word. The second sign was when Kevin's father, Donald Crawford, started showing up at my house uninvited. Donald sold his chain of dry cleaning stores for $3.5 million 15 years ago and has spent every day since acting like he personally invented the concept of passive income. He'd walk around my property pointing at things. "Walter, that dock needs restaining. Those gutters are hanging. When's the last time you had the septic inspected?" He spoke to me the way a landlord speaks to a tenant who's behind on rent. One Saturday in March, I came home from the hardware store and found Kevin and Donald on my dock with a man I'd never seen before. He was taking measurements with a laser tool and scribbling in a notebook. "Dad," Emily called from the porch. "Kevin's friend Craig is in commercial real estate. He's just giving us some ideas." "Ideas? About what?" "About maximizing the property. You know, in case you ever decide to downsize." I hadn't decided anything, but 3 people were already measuring my life for a coffin. The real breaking point wasn't the measuring or the group texts or Donald's inspections. It was what happened 6 weeks ago when Kevin organized what he called a family estate conversation at his house. I drove my Silverado to their subdivision in Alpharetta, parked between Kevin's Mercedes and Donald's Lexus, and walked into a living room that had been set up like a conference room. Printed documents on the coffee table. A laptop open to a real estate listing site. Judith had made finger sandwiches like this was a garden party. Kevin started. Walter, we've been thinking a lot about your situation. My situation. You're 63. You live alone on a property that's more than you need. Maintenance costs are rising. Property taxes in Hart County went up 11% last year. And honestly, Dad, he looked at Emily for support. She looked at her shoes. Donald took over. What Kevin's trying to say is that you're in a position a lot of men your age find themselves in. Asset rich, cash poor. You're sitting on a gold mine but living like you can barely make your truck payment. I make my truck payment just fine, considering I bought that truck outright in 2006. We had Craig run a preliminary assessment. The Lakehouse, the land, the dock, the waterfront access. You're looking at $875,000, maybe $900 in the right market. Judith chimed in. There's a lovely senior community in Dawsonville, assisted independent living. They have a garden club and movie nights on Fridays. Units start at $1,100 a month. Very reasonable for someone on a fixed income. $1,100 a month. Movie nights. I'm 63, not 93. I hike the Appalachian Trail sections every spring. I can still split a cord of firewood in an afternoon. Emily finally spoke. Dad, we're not trying to push you. We just want you to be comfortable. Kevin and I need more space. Lily's getting older. And with the new baby coming, she touched her stomach. We've been looking at lake properties for years, but we can't afford what's on the market. And you already have exactly what we need. Kevin leaned forward. Here's what we're proposing. You sell us the property at $600,000, a family price, $100,000 below the low-end estimate. You take that money, move into Dawsonville Gardens, and live stress-free. No more property taxes, no more dock repairs, no more worrying about a house that's too big for one person. Donald added, and if you're smart about investing the difference, you could actually come out ahead. And the 43, the 7 Dieters A. I know a financial advisor who works with retirees in your bracket. My bracket. I almost laughed. My bracket included a holding company with 3,100 employees, commercial real estate in 4 states, and a personal net worth north of $170 million. But I just nodded slowly and said I'd think about it. That night I sat on my dock and watched the sunset over Lake Hartwell. Same dock where I taught Emily to fish when she was 6. Same dock where my wife Grace and I used to sit every evening before she passed in 2017. Grace knew everything about the company. She was the one who told me not to show it. Not because I was ashamed, but because she wanted Emily to learn that a person's value isn't measured by their bank account. If she respects you when she thinks you have nothing, Grace said, then you'll know it's real. I failed that test with my daughter, and Grace wasn't here to see it. The documents arrived by FedEx 3 days later. A 40-page packet from Crawford and Associates, Donald's nephew's law firm. The cover letter called it a family property optimization agreement. The language was polished. Voluntary transfer. Dignified transition. Intergenerational asset stewardship. Page 31 had a clause I read 3 times. Should Walter Brennan decline to participate in the proposed transition, the Crawford-Brennan family reserves the right to petition for a property conservatorship review under Georgia Code Section 2951, citing the owner's inability to maintain the property in a manner consistent with community standards. They were threatening to have me declared incompetent if I didn't sell my own house to my son-in-law at a discount. I took that packet to my home office, the room Emily thinks I use for storing fishing tackle. I opened the floor safe behind the bookshelf. Corporate Charter for Brennan Logistics Partners, Incorporated 2009. Annual financial statements showing $142 million in revenue. A portfolio summary from my wealth manager at Morgan Stanley showing liquid assets of $51 million. A framed article from Atlanta Business Chronicle 2 years ago calling me the invisible titan of Southeast freight. I'd kept it all in that safe since Grace died. Now I spread it across my desk and picked up the phone. First call. My corporate attorney, Helen Sato, in Atlanta. She's been with me since the beginning. Helen, I need a full asset protection trust, drafted within 48 hours. My Lakehouse, my investment properties, everything goes into an irrevocable trust. My daughter and her husband get zero claim. What happened, Walter? My son-in-law just threatened me with a conservatorship petition to take my house. Silence. Then, I'll have it done in 24. Second call. My COO, Marcus Webb. Marcus, pull up every contract we have connected to the Crawford name. Donald Crawford's dry cleaning chain sold to Southeast Cleaners Group in 2010. We handle their warehouse logistics for 14 locations. Also check Crawford Dental Partners. That's Kevin's practice. And the Buckhead Professional Plaza where his office is located. Marcus called back in 20 minutes. Walt, we've got 3 connections. Southeast Cleaners Group, 14 location logistics contract worth $410,000 a year. Buckhead Professional Plaza, full building maintenance and freight elevator service, $160,000 a year. And Crawford Dental Partners specifically has a medical waste transport contract with our subsidiary, Green Route Disposal, $78,000 a year. Terminate all 3. Effective immediately. Site capacity reallocation. Walter, that's $648,000 in annual revenue. I know exactly what it is. Third call. My daughter's friend Megan, who happens to be the office administrator at Peachtree Periodontics, the practice that sends Kevin 40% of his patient referrals. Megan and I have been friends since she was Emily's college roommate. She still calls me Mr. B and comes to my 4th of July cookouts. Megan, I need to ask you something. Has Kevin ever said anything about me at professional events? Long pause. Mr. B, I didn't want to tell you this, but at the Dental Association dinner last month, Kevin told a table of 8 people that you were, quote, a retired truck driver who didn't understand money and that he and Emily were basically your financial safety net. Dr. Patel was there. He felt awful about it. Thank you, Megan. That's all I needed to know. The Crawford's annual spring gala was 3 weeks away. They'd been hosting it for 10 years at their country club in Roswell. 200 people, business associates, dental industry contacts, real estate developers, and everyone in their social circle who mattered. Kevin had told Emily this year's gala would include a special family announcement. I knew exactly what that announcement was. I showed up in my Carhartt jacket and work boots, drove the Silverado and parked it right next to the valet stand. The kid in the vest looked at my truck like it had arrived from another century. Kevin spotted me from across the room and put on his hosting smile. Walter, glad you could make it. Come meet some people. He introduced me to a circle of men in sport coats. Everyone, this is Emily's father, Walter. Walter's a truck driver. Well, retired mostly. Right, Dad? I shook hands and smiled. One of them, a man named Stephen Holt who ran a commercial development firm, asked what kind of trucking. Oh, you know, moving things from one place to another. They chuckled politely and moved on to talking about interest rates. Judith found me at the bar. Walter, I hope you've had a chance to look over the documents we sent. Donald's nephew worked very hard on those. I read every page, Judith. Wonderful. Kevin and Emily are going to make the announcement tonight. It'll be so nice for everyone to hear the good news. She patted my arm the way people pat a dog that's about to be sent to the shelter. Halfway through dinner, Donald stood up and clinked his glass. If I could have everyone's attention. Tonight we're celebrating more than just spring. We're celebrating family growth. He gestured toward Kevin and Emily. As many of you know, Kevin and Emily are expanding their family, and they're also expanding their horizons. They've found the perfect property on Lake Hartwell, and thanks to the generosity of Emily's father, Walter, they'll be breaking ground on their dream home this summer. Applause. 200 people clapping for a decision I never made. Emily looked at me from across the room with an expression caught halfway between guilt and hope. Kevin's, I want to thank Walter personally. He's worked hard his whole life, and this is his way of investing in the next generation. We're going to take care of him. He looked at me. Dad, we've already reserved your unit at Dawsonville Gardens. You move in August 1st. August 1st. They'd already put down a deposit on my exile. I stood up slowly. The room got quiet the way rooms do when someone breaks the script. Kevin, can I ask you something? Sure, Walter. Of course. Do you know who handles the logistics for Southeast Cleaners Group? The company that bought Donald's dry cleaning chain? Kevin frowned. I don't know. Why? What about the building maintenance for Buckhead Professional Plaza? The building where your dental practice is located? Walter, I don't see what this has to do with. One more. Who handles the medical waste removal for Crawford Dental Partners? The contract that keeps your practice in compliance with state health regulations? Donald was already shifting in his chair. Robert, this is a celebration, not a business meeting. The answer to all three questions is the same company, Brennan Logistics Partners. I paused to let the name register. I founded it in 2009. I'm still the CEO and sole owner. Current annual revenue is $142 million. 3,100 employees across 5 states. Personal net worth, including the company, real estate holdings in Savannah and Asheville, and liquid assets, is approximately $170 million. Dead silence. 200 people staring. Stephen Holt put down his fork. Kevin laughed, high and tight. Dad, that's not real. I pulled out my phone and opened the company dashboard. Revenue tracking, fleet management, employee directory, contract database. Current day revenue across all operations, $381,000. Active contracts, 2,200. Fleet size, 412 vehicles. I set the phone on the table where everyone could see the screen. Donald's face went white. That's not possible. You drive a Chevy with rust on it. I like that truck. Grace and I bought it the year Emily started kindergarten. There's nothing wrong with it. Emily's hands were shaking. Dad, why didn't you tell me? Because your mother and I wanted to see if you'd love me the same whether I had nothing or everything. She made me promise. I looked at Kevin. Here's what's happening. As of yesterday, Brennan Logistics has terminated all contracts connected to the Crawford family. Southeast Cleaners Group loses their 14-location logistics support. Your building in Buckhead loses maintenance and freight service. And your dental practice loses its medical waste transport, which means you're out of compliance with Georgia health codes as of Monday morning. Kevin grabbed the edge of the table. You can't do that. We have patients coming in Monday. Then I suggest you find a new vendor this weekend. Though I should mention, we're the only licensed medical waste transporter with weekend emergency onboarding in the metro Atlanta area. Donald stood up. This is blackmail. No, Donald. Blackmail is threatening a 63-year-old man with a conservatorship petition to steal his house. What I'm doing is choosing who I do business with. I reached into my jacket pocket and pulled out a folded document. This is a copy of the irrevocable trust I established this week. My Lakehouse, my land, my dock, and all my other properties are now held in the Grace Brennan Family Trust. No member of the Crawford family has any legal claim to any of it. The petition your nephew drafted is worthless. Stephen Holt leaned over to the man next to him and said something I couldn't hear, but I watched him pull up the Brennan Logistics website on his phone and show it around the table. Emily was crying. Dad, I'm so sorry. I didn't know about the conservatorship letter. Kevin told me the documents were just standard estate planning. Did you read them? She shook her head. You should always read what you sign, sweetheart. Your mother taught you that. Kevin tried one more time. Walter, let's step outside and discuss this privately. We're past private, Kevin. You announced my eviction in front of 200 people. You can hear my response in front of 200 people. I picked up my jacket. Emily, I love you. That hasn't changed. But you married a man who looked at your father and saw a problem to be managed instead of a person to be respected. And somewhere along the way, you started seeing me the same way. That's what hurts more than any of this. I walked to the door. Megan was standing near the exit. She squeezed my hand as I passed. Proud of you, Mr. B. I drove home along the lake road with the windows down. The night smelled like Georgia pine and fresh water. My phone started buzzing before I hit the highway. Someone at the gala had recorded the whole thing. Within hours, it was everywhere. Secret logistics mogul destroys son-in-law at country club gala. Millionaire grandfather. They tried to put in a nursing home. The internet does what the internet does. I didn't watch any of the videos. Kevin's practice had to shut down for 2 days the following week while they scrambled to find a new medical waste service. The emergency provider they found charged triple the rate and required a 6-month minimum contract. 3 of his referring dentists called to ask questions. One of them, Dr. Patel, pulled his referral partnership entirely, said it was about professional judgment. Donald's connection to Southeast Cleaners Group got complicated fast. Without Brennan Logistics handling their distribution, they missed delivery windows at 6 locations in the first week. The CEO called Donald screaming, asking why his family drama was costing them money. Emily called me every day for 2 weeks. I answered every time, but I kept the conversations short. I wasn't punishing her. I was waiting for her to stop apologizing for Kevin and start thinking for herself. It took 23 days. She showed up at my Lakehouse on a Saturday morning alone. No Kevin, no Lily, no designer sunglasses. She was wearing jeans and an old University of Georgia sweatshirt I recognized from her freshman year. She looked like the daughter I remembered. "Can I sit on the dock with you, Dad?" Always. We sat there for a long time watching the water. A blue heron landed on the far shore and stood perfectly still, the way they do. "I didn't know," she said finally, "about any of it. Not the company, not the money, not who you really were. And that's my fault, not yours, because I stopped asking. I stopped being curious about your life years ago. Kevin would say things about you and I let it become the story I believed." "What things?" "That you were stuck, that you didn't have ambition, that you were comfortable being small." She wiped her eyes. "Mom would be so ashamed of me. Your mother would be disappointed. But she wouldn't give up on you. She never gave up on anyone." Emily took a breath. "I left Kevin's house. I'm staying with Megan for now. I told him I need space to figure out who I am without someone telling me what to think." "What did he say?" "He said I was being emotional, which is exactly what he says every time I try to have an opinion." I nodded. "What about Lily?" "She's with me. She keeps asking when we're going to Grandpa's lake." I told her soon. "Bring her tomorrow. I'll make pancakes." Emily started crying again, but different this time. Not guilt crying, relief crying. "Dad, I need to tell you something." "What's that?" I started painting again. Watercolors. Last week, at Megan's kitchen table. "They're terrible. Bring them tomorrow too." Kevin showed up at my door 2 Sundays later. He came alone, no Mercedes. He was driving a rental. Turns out the Mercedes lease was up and he'd chosen not to renew. He stood on my porch looking like a man who hadn't slept well in a month. "Mr. Brennan, I owe you an apology. Not because of the contracts or the money, because I treated you like you didn't matter. And I taught your daughter to do the same." I let him stand there for a moment. "Come inside, Kevin." We sat at my kitchen table, the one Grace picked out at an estate sale in 1996. "I've been doing a lot of thinking," he said, "about why I needed everyone to see me a certain way, about why I needed you to be less, so I could feel like more. And I think I've been terrified since dental school that someone would figure out I'm not as smart or successful as I pretend to be. So I surrounded myself with people I could look down on, including you." He stared at his hands. "My dad raised me to believe that what you own is who you are. You raised Emily to believe the opposite, and I spent 8 years trying to undo that." "What do you want, Kevin?" "I want to earn back my family. Not your money, not your house, not your contracts. I want Emily to respect me, and I want Lily to grow up knowing her father can be a decent man. I don't know if that's possible, but I'm asking for the chance. That's between you and Emily, not me. I know, but I needed you to hear it first, because you're the one I wronged the most and pretended it didn't count." I poured him coffee. We sat there for an hour talking about nothing important. The lake, the weather, how Lily was doing in school. He asked me about the company for the first time ever, and I told him a little. Not the numbers, just the story. How I started with 1 truck and a contract to haul restaurant supplies. How Grace answered phones from our bedroom for 3 years. How I almost went bankrupt in 2011, and a client gave me a second chance that saved everything. Kevin listened the way people listen when they're actually hearing you. Maybe for the first time. He didn't ask for his contracts back. He didn't ask for help with his practice. He just finished his coffee, thanked me, and left. 2 months later, Emily moved back in with Kevin. Not because I told her to, but because she said he'd changed enough to deserve another chance. He'd started volunteering at a free dental clinic in East Point on weekends. No Instagram posts about it. No announcements. Just showing up. Brandon, my operations manager, told me Kevin had called the office and asked about entry-level positions. Not for himself, but for a patient at the free clinic who'd mentioned needing work. Marcus hired the guy. He's driving one of our trucks now. Last Sunday, the whole family came to the Lakehouse. Kevin brought steaks he'd marinated himself. Emily brought a watercolor she'd painted of the dock at sunset. It wasn't terrible at all. Lily caught a bluegill off the dock and screamed so loud the heron on the far shore took off like a rocket. Kevin held the fish for her while she posed for a picture, and he looked at me over her head with an expression I'd never seen from him before. Gratitude, maybe, or just the beginning of understanding what actually matters. After dinner, I walked Lily down to the water's edge. She held my hand and stared out at the lake turning gold in the last light. "Grandpa, are you really rich?" Emily must have said something. "Where'd you hear that?" "Daddy said you're the smartest man he knows, but you don't show off." I squeezed her hand. "I've got a truck, a house, a lake, and a granddaughter who catches fish. That's rich enough." She thought about that for a second. "Can I have a boat? Ask me again when you're 10. Donald and Judith haven't called since the gala. I hear through Megan that Donald tells people the whole thing was a misunderstanding. That's fine. Some people learn. Some people just rearrange the story until they're comfortable again. I reinstated the Southeast Cleaners contract last month. Not for Donald. For the employees at those 14 locations who didn't deserve to suffer because of one family's arrogance. Kevin's medical waste contract is still handled by the other company. He hasn't asked me to change that, and I respect him more for it. Every morning I drive my 2006 Silverado to the Waffle House on Route 29. I sit at the counter, order scattered, smothered, and covered hash browns, and read the paper. The waitress calls me honey and refills my coffee without asking. Nobody in that restaurant knows or cares what my net worth is. That's exactly how I like it. Grace, if you're listening, she's finding her way back. It took longer than we hoped, but she's painting again. And that man she married, he's trying. Really trying. You always said people deserve the chance to become who they're supposed to be. I'm giving him that chance. For you. If you're still listening to this, leave a comment and tell me where you're from. And remember something. The people who love you when they think you have nothing are the ones worth everything. Everybody else is just waiting for the estate sale.